Greetings, Poké fans! Michael here, and Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl did a lot of things right. The addition of hideaways makes the underground far more enjoyable and fun. I found most battle arenas to be absolutely beautiful. Adding character customization, even though the originals did not have it, something Oris failed to do, was a great call. And your Pokemon don't need to know gems anymore, which thank God for. But despite those good things, these games have quite a few problems that I'm gonna be covering in this video. Now, to be clear, I'm not someone who loves to hate on Pokemon. I love Pokemon, and I've enjoyed every main series game that's come out since I started playing almost 20 years ago, including these ones. These criticisms don't come from a place of hatred, they come from a place of love for the franchise and a desire for it to be better. So with that out of the way, let's get started with the first problem I have with these games, which is kind of a big umbrella problem full of multiple smaller problems. That being not including enough from Platinum. Of all the enhanced versions to come out over the years, Platinum is the biggest improvement over the versions it's enhancing. The main reason for that is the expansion it provided to the Sinnoh Dex. It and Ultra Sun and Moon are the only ones to expand their regional Pokedex. Black 2 and White 2 did also, but I don't really count them as enhanced versions. They're more sequels since it's a totally new story and different progression and all that jazz. And Platinum provided a much more impactful regional Dex improvement over the originals than Ultra Sun and Moon did. That's because the Sun and Moon Alola Dex is perfectly adequate, having over 300 Pokemon, while the Diamond and Pearl Sinnoh Dex is horrible. It only has about 150 Pokemon, is chock full of weak and bad bug types, and it underrepresents several important types, like Fire, Electric, and Dragon. If you're playing a Gen 4 Sinnoh game today, there is no reason to play Diamond and Pearl over Platinum, because Platinum just gives you so many more options. When Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl were announced, I talked about how the games must include the Platinum Sinnoh Dex, because not doing so would be a completely illogical regression. The trailers showed several Platinum Dex Pokemon in them though, so this concern of mine was pretty quickly mitigated. But then Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl came out, and instead of doing the best case scenario Platinum Dex or the worst case scenario Diamond and Pearl Dex, they did a weird mix of both. The Sinnoh Dex is the Diamond and Pearl one, so the wild Pokemon on the surface and the trainer's Pokemon are all original Sinnoh Dex Pokemon. However, to appease those of us who wanted the Platinum Dex, they made Platinum Dex Pokemon available in the hideaways in the Grand Underground. And frankly, that's fine with me. I never really cared about what the Pokedex itself had. I cared about what Pokemon I could use on my team. I think it would be better if the enemy trainers had more variety, but my team is the most important one. But then I come to find out that the Underground doesn't have all of the Platinum Dex Pokemon. Sure, it doesn't make sense for Giratina to be down there, but there's a lot of Platinum Dex Pokemon that are just completely unobtainable before the league. Nosepass and Probopass, all of the evolutions, Tangela and Tangrowth, Yanma and Yanmega, Tropius and the Porygon line are all completely unavailable before getting the National Pokedex. Yes, there were some Pokemon added like Pinsir, Jinx, and Ursaring, plus the Kanto and Hoenn fossils. Although, side note, it seems like the Kanto and Hoenn fossils might be bugs. I found a root fossil after having 8 gym badges in my Brilliant Diamond, and some other people have as well, but only in Brilliant Diamond. If you're in Shining Pearl and you found a Kanto or Hoenn fossil after having 8 gym badges, but before the league, then let me know in the comments, because I think it might just be a bug for Brilliant Diamond, which would be really weird. But those new Pokemon don't make up for the loss of the other ones. Especially the other ones include several Gen 4 Pokemon like Probopass. But what makes me fuming mad is that there are multiple Platinum Dex Pokemon that you can catch before the league, but you can't fully evolve until after the league. Are you kidding me? You can get Gligar, Rhydon, and Dusclops all before the league, but you can't get Gliscor, Rhyperior, and Dusknoir until after the league because their evolution items are locked to the post game. They made Pokemon available before the league that you can't fully evolve until after the league. They consistently do this in remakes, and it frustrates me to no end. But for the other remakes, those new evolutions were never available in those remakes' original games. So Crobat was never available in Red, Blue, and Yellow, so they didn't put it in Fire Red and Leaf Green. But Sinnoh had these evolutions before. It had them in its regional Pokedex in Platinum. They have predetermined places to put those evolution items. They could have so easily done it, and they just didn't. They made other new evolutions available, like Electivire, Mamoswine, and Frostlass, but they just cut out Gliscor, Rhyperior, and Dusknoir, plus the other ones whose base forms you can't even get at all. Just why? Why not just include all of them? Additionally, Rotom got screwed. Platinum made it so you could get Rotom as soon as you gain access to the old chateau. You don't need the National Pokedex, but you need it in Diamond and Pearl and in Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. I guess the reasoning is that the non-Synodex Pokemon are only found in the underground, and they don't want to put Rotom in the underground. But why not just expand the dex then? I know it's more Pokemon to see to get the National Dex, but it's like, it's not that hard to see them all. In the end, these are all the Pokemon that were added to and thus improved the Synodex in Platinum version. Then these are all of the non-Synodex Pokemon you can get in BDSP before the League. While most of them are still there, it's a significant cut. The most egregious being the removals of the evolutions of Pokemon whose base form you can get with ease.
Haha! It is I, Grunty Boy!
What is it?
Well, I was showering with Dr. Squatch Soap earlier, the sponsor of today's video, and I was simply overwhelmed by a wonderful scent!
Oh, was it their popular and my personal favorite scent, Pine Tar?
Well, yes, actually, but also the scent of nostalgia.
Well, what does that smell like?
Like Dr. Squatch. Obviously. Just think about it. You and I have been through so much together this year ever since you introduced me to Dr. Squatch. I have such fond memories of its natural ingredients, no harsh chemicals, how it feels on my skin, how it's changed my showering, and how it's made in the USA.
While my memories of Dr. Squatch have also been very positive, my memories of your involvement with it have been a tad more...
Boy, what? Ah! Oh, Grunty Boy!
Traumatic.
Oh, come on, we've had great fun.
You certainly seem to have had fun. Maybe too much fun while taking a shower.
That's the Dr. Squatch effect.
Fair enough, actually. Oh, I also have very fond memories of new customers getting 20% off orders of $20 or more by heading to the link in the description below and using code DSC MandJTV.
Oh, what a lovely year. Anyways, I'm off to bathe again. I used their shampoo and conditioner too, and it is fantastic. Ta-ta!
The Pokedex change is the worst of them, but there are other Platinum improvements that were removed. One big one is the Battle Frontier, which I'm disappointed by, but not surprised. They didn't put the Battle Frontier from Emerald in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. Why should we expect it now? I'm not expecting a Battle Frontier ever again, to be honest. Which is so annoying. Additionally, the Shard move tutors from Platinum were removed, which was a great addition because it expanded Pokemon's movesets and gave you more uses of shards to dig up in the underground. Shards can be dug up in the underground in BDSP, but they're mostly useless. You only use them to get the weather TMs, which I don't think people are gonna be using very often. If you're using a weather team, just use a Pokemon with a weather setting ability. And you can exchange them for TMs or spheres with the hikers in the underground. But that's not good enough for me. Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire had those move tutors. They were in the post game, but they still existed. But in Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, they're just not there at all, which I don't understand. That's like severely limiting so many Pokemon's movesets when they could have easily been included. Before I move on to the next problem, you should subscribe to this channel, that'd be great. But also, my MandJTV hat and plushie at my merch store, MandJTVmerch.com, are going away forever at the end of this year, or when they sell out, whichever happens first. The Team Sky shirt is back as well, and all these items have a discount, so pick one up soon before they sell out or the end of the year, and if you order soon enough, it can arrive before Christmas, MandJTVmerch.com. So the games failed to include really important Platinum improvements, but they have other issues as well. Another big one is the movement of your character is not great. The world is essentially the same as the original in regards to movement. While the visuals are 3D, the world is still laid out as a grid of squares. This causes problems when the character is not confined to those squares. The amount of times I struggled to move around a rock is endless, and swapping to the D-pad makes the movement far slower and awkward when changing directions, even if you hold down B to run. These issues are especially prevalent when you have a narrow walkway above a ledge, like trying to climb Mount Coronet. Just getting to the proper place without going over the ledge, a trivial movement normally, took multiple tries. I would tap the down button on the D-pad once, and my character would take multiple steps downward and yeet itself off the ledge. It was infuriating. Thankfully, the bike sand pass and ramps don't require a head start of speed to get up them, because if they did, oh my God, they'd be impossible. On the topic of movement, following Pokemon in these games is horrible. I tried it briefly once and then never did it again. The last time following Pokemon was good was in Let's Go. Most every Pokemon travels at the same speed as you, or in some cases will move in front of you and change their path as you do, which I think is pretty cool. Some Pokemon's following is riding instead, which I think adds to the immersion. In Let's Go, I could ride around the world on the back of my Arcanine, something I've always wanted to be able to do, and that was really awesome. But Sword and Shield messed up following Pokemon really badly. Most Pokemon are too slow to keep up with you when walking, so they fall behind, so they sprint to catch up, then walk again, fall behind, sprint, and so forth. And that assumes the Pokemon is fast enough to keep up with you at all. It was a major downgrade from the following in Let's Go, and unfortunately, BDSP took a lot more from Sword and Shield than they did from Let's Go. There are a variety of reasons it's bad in these new games. The first is that the Pokemon's speed rarely matches the player. Slow Pokemon cannot keep up with you and end up left in the dust, resulting in an endless loop of going back into their Pokeballs, reappearing at a place far behind where you were at that moment, and then never catching up unless you stop. Even fast Pokemon like Weavile move slower than the player when they're running, the default speed for the player to move. An easy way to fix this is to just have the Pokemon move the same speed as the player. That's what they did in Let's Go, and it works. I know it's not realistic for certain Pokemon, but with this feature, I'm not worried about realism, I just want my Pokemon to walk next to me. The next problem is that the Pokemon are solid objects. You can run into them and they will slow you down. This is a huge annoyance, especially when you're going one way, then want to turn around and go the other way. In Let's Go, if your Pokemon gets too close to you or an object, it instantly returns to its Pokeball and respawns behind you. Heart Gold and Soul Silver had you simply phase through the Pokemon. Why couldn't BDSP do one of those things? Why does having your Pokemon follow you mean that you have to have an obstacle? The final thing I don't like about following Pokemon in BDSP is the aesthetics of it. Even if you fixed the problem of the movement speed and the solid objects, it still doesn't look good. The Pokemon are not to scale, resulting in large Pokemon looking wholly absurd while tiny next to the player. There were two ways to fix this, and they chose neither. The first is to make the Pokemon to scale. Let's Go did this, and it was great. Even the really big Pokemon. It makes it so they can follow you in far fewer places, but it still looks good. Heck, they don't even have to be exactly to scale. Just do what Heart Gold Soul Silver did and make them somewhat bigger than the player. Having a Dialga with normal proportions barely taller than the player looks ridiculous. The other option was to just chibi-fy the Pokemon. All the overworld people are chibi-fied, so why not do the Pokemon too? Heart Gold Soul Silver kind of did this, and it looks great. I do understand though that this would be a big chore since they would have to create totally new 3D models, although maybe they could have taken the models from Rumble, who knows. So if that would be difficult, then just make them more to scale. It doesn't have to be exact. Just bigger than the player if the Pokemon is bigger than the player. I understand that they were trying to include a highly requested feature, but we were requesting the Heart Gold Soul Silver or Let's Go version, not this garbage. If following Pokemon is going to continue to be this bad, then they just shouldn't include it anymore. The next problem I have is how they changed secret bases. This one is more of a mixed bag for me. I do like hunting for statues, since it gives another fun thing to dig for in the underground. I also enjoy changing which ones you display to try to get certain Pokemon to show up. By using grass statues, I was able to get all the grass starters relatively quickly. But the addition of statues has come at the expense of something that I and a lot of other people really cared about: being able to decorate your secret bases. Yes, you can decorate them with statues, but only statues. In the original games, you could decorate it with a TV, dolls, desks, tables, kitchen furniture, and more. I enjoyed that as a kid and was hoping to do it again, but you can't. The only things you can place in your secret base are the statues, which makes the base feel less like a home and more like you've unearthed an army of terracotta soldiers. I don't understand why they removed this. Aurus let us decorate our secret bases as freely as the original Hoenn games did, so why take that from us in Sinnoh? I like the statue decorating, but I didn't want it to replace the other decorating. I feel like they could have given us a separate statue room, or even just let us put both statues or decorations into our secret bases. So people that only care about the spawn boosting effects could do that, and people who want to decorate their base can do that, or a mix of the two. It just sucks that we can't decorate our bases anymore, aside from, well, like a statue garden. Another thing I'm bummed they removed about the underground is capture the flag and the traps. I didn't really get to experience those as much since I didn't have people I could play those games with locally, really. So I'm not as bummed about it, but I was looking forward to trying it, and now I don't get to try it. The next problem I have is that the games are riddled with bugs. I think these might be the buggiest games to come out in a decade. Some glitches are fine with me, like using an exploit to clone Pokemon, but then some of them break the game, like this person getting trapped behind NPCs. And since they couldn't find a teleport Pokemon in the underground, had to restart their entire save game. I saw in Cerebi that apparently there's like a backup save to your most recent save that you can use to get out of a trap like that, but it's like, why should that even be necessary? Just don't trap players with a bug. It's not a great look to have a AAA title game on release have so many bugs, some of which can force people to have to restart the game. It's like, not great. And the final problem I have with BDSP is probably my most controversial one. In fact, I know it's my most controversial one because I've seen a bunch of comments on my Plays channel talking about how much they like this thing. So I'm just gonna come out and say it. I think the Pokemon League is too hard. Hear me out. For many years, people, mainly adult Pokemon fans, have complained that the games have been too easy. And I don't usually agree with them. Yeah, a lot of the times I'm not really having any problems through a regular playthrough of the game, but I personally am not looking for a very difficult Pokemon game. Besides, you can make the game harder on yourself, and even if you don't, there are certain battles that will get people up against the ropes, like Ultra Necrozma. But I do understand the concern, so I don't have a problem with them making the Pokemon League a bit more difficult than it has been in the past. In a way that's not just boosting levels, because boosting levels just means more grinding beforehand. I'm talking like better strategies, better held items, stuff like that. But the League in Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl went too far. In the original Sinnoh games, the Elite Four and Champion had 30 IVs across the board, just shy of perfect, random natures, and no EVs. And the only Pokemon to get held items are the Aces, which have citrus berries. But then the Elite Four in BDSP have perfect IVs in every stat except the attack stat they don't use, a useful held item on every Pokemon, a beneficial nature, and 300 EVs distributed out, usually maxing one stat and spreading the extra to the others. Cynthia's Pokemon are the same, but her Pokemon have the maximum 510 EVs. In short, Cynthia has perfect competitive Pokemon, and the Elite Four come pretty close. And there are a lot of nasty sets, like Drifblim with Minimize, Strength Sap, and Baton Pass, a set that would be banned in Smogon competitive battling. And on top of all of that, they're perfect competitive Pokemon that can use full restores. This is insane! I think it's cool that they put a perfect competitive team in the game outside of a battle facility. But I don't think it's cool that they did it before the post game. If they wanted to make the League rematches perfectly competitive after you've had time to build your own competitive team, I think that would be great. It gives you something to work toward. But for the first run through of the League that you must defeat to carry on in the game, that doesn't sit well with me. The player doesn't have all the resources to make a competitive team. The Destiny Knot, the Judge feature, and the power items are all locked to the post game. Yes, you could still theoretically make perfect competitive Pokemon before the League, but it would be incredibly difficult to do so, especially since you can't even see what IVs they have. But even if it was possible, it flies in the face of what Pokemon has stood for so long. Beating the game with Pokemon you've grown attached to. That Starly you caught on the first route will be nowhere near competitively perfect. It has a random nature, will have random EVs, and it has random IVs you can't even see. In previous games, that was enough. But now, assuming you don't over-level past the level of Cynthia's Garchomp, your Staraptor is really gonna struggle because it doesn't have the same competitive advantage that Cynthia and the Elite Four's Pokemon do. This actually means that I kind of like affection benefits in battle now, at least in this specific scenario. In the past, I'd get frustrated when I get them because they were giving me an unfair advantage. But now they serve simply to get you on the same level as the competitively perfect League Pokemon. However, it's all luck-based, nothing to do with strategy, so that takes away from it. And what makes the League's difficulty even worse is that it comes out of nowhere. Prior to the League, the game is trivially easy. There was one gym leader that knocked out more than one of my Pokemon, and I was playing on set style with no healing items. It was a simple game if you knew your type matchups. But then out of nowhere, the difficulty is like this and then shoots up like this. The curve doesn't make any sense. I know that a lot of you like that the League is way harder now. And while you may enjoy this challenge, I want you to think about the kids playing this game for the first time. Or yourself when you were a kid. For me, if I was a kid trying to beat this League with no knowledge whatsoever of EVs or IVs and didn't pay any attention to natures, I would get incredibly frustrated as I tried over and over and over again to beat it, and then eventually gotten so frustrated that I quit, or I would have over-leveled my team way past level 66 just so I could move on. And that grinding would have sucked because grinding is my least favorite part of Pokemon. It's something that I'm glad the modern experience share has effectively removed. Like I said, I don't mind that they made it some amount of tougher, but they went too far. If there was some kind of difficulty option that determined whether the League was competitive Pokemon like it is, or more like the original games where they're not competitive, then I'd be perfectly fine with it. But that doesn't exist. So you're forced to fight perfect competitive Pokemon without your own competitive Pokemon. And while a lot of older players are gonna like that challenge, I think it's too unfriendly to beginners. In the end, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are very fun games that I enjoyed playing through and I will continue to enjoy in my free time until Legends Arceus comes out. However, they're disappointing Pokemon games because there were a lot of things that they could have done better that they just didn't. Thanks so much for watching, with an extra special thanks to my patrons over on Patreon who are helping support my channel independent of fluctuating YouTube ad rates. If you wanna help support me in the same way, the link is in the description below. Also, if you wanna check out some more of my fun Pokemon content, I recommend these videos here, and also get some MandJTV merch before it disappears. All right, that's all I have for now, so until next time, big fans, gotta catch them all.